Welcome all. Very interesting discussion here that we've got set up. And couldn't be a better panel to talk about this than Rich and Zach. I'll quickly frame the discussion for us, and then I'll bring Rich and Zach into the conversation. Like Jason just mentioned, this has been a pretty timely topic. All of this year started the year off with like some pretty apocalyptic news where there was a stock of SaaS apocalypse, and there was a big a lot of news and headlines about how SaaS was going to disappear because AI was going to eat SaaS's lunch. But then since then, I think the mood has tempered a little bit. There is some caution coming into such statements, and I think there's now a clear understanding that both extremes, that either that SaaS is dead or that there's going to be no impact of AI on software. Both of those ends have really dissipated. But there's still a lot of discussion to be had, a lot of interesting debate to be had on what is the right answer. If it's not either complete build or complete buy, what's that middle path? What are those? What are the key decision criteria? What to build? What to buy? And I couldn't have a better panel here than Rich and Zach. Rich, as Jason introduced himself, introduced him, is a CTO at Ashley Furniture, and Ashley has been historically building a lot of software. And I know, Rich, you've also been working on modernizing some of that software.
Mhm.
And personally, I know that you are a big fan of AI, and you are a heavy power user of AI as well. So I'm sure you'll
Yes.
have a lot to share on this stuff. Zach, is an old friend. Zach straddles both sides of of this fence. He's been on the side of a SaaS company. He's been on the side of a SI. He's been now on the side of a retailer. He's seen this from multiple perspectives. And I'm really eager to hear Zach's point of view on all of these different perspectives. So. Before jumping in, though, I want to ask you guys one icebreaker question just to get your take on, this topic. And to kick things off, can both of you share what's the last fun, interesting thing you guys built using AI, or fun, interesting thing you did with AI, and what did you, what was your experience like? Was the build really good, or did you run into a lot of trouble with it? So maybe Rich, if you can start. I know you do a lot of build. While I give Zach a couple of minutes to think.
I do.
Yeah.
So what was the most interesting thing I've done with AI recently? So beyond the full-time day job, right? I'm working 70, 80, 90 hours. At home, I've got a DGX AI supercomputers and a number of AI agents. So I'm building bots right now to fully automate my home. I've got the Philips Hue light bulbs and everything. I no longer use a single light switch, and I just completely talk to Jarvis, which is then relaying into my Siri, managing everything from my kitty cameras to my security camera systems to sensors with the button on my Keurig because I didn't want to rewire my Keurig. So even that is fully automated. So I've built everything from managing the house. My mailbox is smart and it goes and sends me notifications. I get text messages in from Jarvis that's watching it all. And then I built it fully running on local AI models, so it's entirely controlled in-house, and I fundamentally am using zero SaaS to do it. So from the Tesla Powerwall to the panels to the power monitoring, all of that. That's my most recent fun thing. And we're playing with some AI on humanoids at work as well, and playing with world model creation, what we're doing. So both sides have been AI fun to me recently.
Wow, fantastic. And I kind of knew that when I was asking you this question, Rich, that you will have something really interesting to share. Now, Zach, no pressure. So, but
No,
I'd
I got
love to hear what, yeah.
my Jarvis is still called Alexa. So
There you go. Right.
I don't have a Jarvis. Uh, I think what back in late January. So I play golf. I just got into it pre-COVID. Never would have thought that. And we have a monthly group that is run on text chains and spreadsheets and such. So I got familiar with Claude Code back in late January. Never really touched it before then. Built a web app and corresponding mobile app to do pairings, point tracking, and stuff. Pretty steep learning curve. My background's been supply chain and on the business side, so I'm a builder in a sense with AI, but had never really actually kind of quite coded anything before. I was more on the functional side of functional technical conversations. That's been a pretty eye-opening 3-4 months. Launched it. It's in market. We use it in our group monthly and kind of beta testing it now.
That's
A
wonderful.
little side gig.
This is great to hear that you're also kind of jumping into it both feet. So I'll kick this off with kind of a real framing question first for both of you. And Rich, I'd like to start with you on this.
Sure.
So fundamentally, the framing has been historically, build or buy. And I think the pendulum has swung, between buy and build, historically. So it used to be, and you're no stranger to this, Rich, 20, 25 years ago, everything was build. We had all of these mainframes, and then it swung over the last 20 years pretty hard to buy, and everything was SaaS. And now it seems to be kind of like somewhere in that, like figuring out of what is the right answer here. So I'll start with kind of asking you what is the right question or the way to think about this question. Even should we be thinking build versus buy? Should we be thinking build and buy? What's the right way to think about this?
Sure. So I think there's a step before I directly answer that that's important to correlate is AI's drastically changed the speed of software creation, right? And to that end, it's being able to prototype a workflow, the integrations or tooling from what used to be months to days, right? In particular, here we're talking order management, and it was really never about could I get an AI to write the CRUD application. We can do that stuff in hours and days now, and I send my agent off and just come back and have a prototypes. But it's still about the resiliency, the orchestration, the concurrency, all of the safety things that are necessary for operational accountability, right? So AI really in this scenario compress the cost of experimentation, not the cost of operational failure. To that end, I believe that is the kind of philosophy that's leading toward the buy versus build. To me, it now has changed the dynamic to I don't want to buy everything, nor should I build everything. And the determining factor is which things give your business value and drastic advantage in the market. Don't write an accounting software. There's 1,000 people that already did it, unless you're an accounting software company. Buy that. The things that are on top of it, how do you automate your accounts payable? How do you work within your systems? That's something you should do. Own that, right? Same thing is true within order management. Same thing is true within the systems. Everything we have, the buy versus build to me is because my experimentation is fast, why I started with that. It changes which things I should build versus buy, and it's things that add value to the business. Buy the rest. Commodities, you don't want to build an LLM directly. Use one that already exists. That doesn't give you value unless you're OpenAI. Use the thing that's on top of it and go run with it.
Yeah, so it's basically you're talking about a nuanced view of firstly experimentation on innovation, and then a nuanced view on what to build and what to buy.
Yeah,
Zach,
the hard part's not generating code, it's knowing which code deserves to exist and therefore which code I should write versus buy.
right. I want to dig into that a little bit more later, Rich. But Zach, I know you have maybe a slightly different perspective or a different view, at least from what you've seen in the past, and you've come from SaaS and from SI and now from a retailer as well. What is your take on this? On how companies are thinking, how you're thinking about this?
I'm actually going through this right now in a couple of different parts of my portfolio. I think so. Look, we're at Fanatics. We make and license and sell and distribute a bunch of different products globally. I think as a little bit of Rich's point is like, what do you want to be good at? And in the context of order management, that's a question of how your network looks. That's a question of your data model, how fast you want to distribute those goods. And so I think my frame on it is at Fanatics, am I solving for a speed to market play? And I can go build something really robust that's maybe in a platform, or maybe I want to trade that off and focus my energy and my team on like what's important really. So for me, I think the lens is how do I retain the flexibility I need to serve the business stakeholders, and putting our time and attention with using AI to the things that matter building. I think in the context of order management, I think that's a little bit nuanced. I think if I zoom out past that, more of a sales and service conversation, it's maybe a differentiated experience, and how bespoke those rules and that engine needs to be drive a lot of these. coming up with that rubric, I think at the onset is a little bit of Rich's point. Like that matters most. What are you solving for up front? Is it speed? Is this cost? Do I have enough people even using AI? And you kind of make a decision grounding on that, but you get the business's agreement on that up front, I think is where I've kind of put my last 6, 7 weeks here. And same deal 2 months ago was back on the SI side. It's like, should we buy it or build it? Kind of a similar story there. It's how much energy and time do you want to put into this? And are you really that unique in your model? And kind of pressure testing that is not always the easiest conversation with the business sometimes, but I think that's the frame up front is like, why are you doing this and why you're doing it right now? And that kind of tells the story down the line of what parts you do and don't build yourself, what's commodity versus truly bespoke to your business
Right.
model.
Got it. If I can dig into that a little bit more, Zach, specifically getting into the OMS domain and kind of, and I think you bring up some really good points, or bring up some really good criteria for evaluating this question. So time to market, what's secret sauce, flexibility. I think you mentioned the differentiated experience that you can provide. So looking at the OMS, domain, which is kind of most of our of the audience here's area of interest, and I could
Yeah,
even stretch it a little bit further into say commerce on one side and to say supply chain on the other side, right? What and looking at these different dimensions you talked about for evaluation, how would you think about our domain, and what would the key criteria be from your perspective in terms of I'm looking for, say maybe these are the pieces in our domain that we should be thinking of building versus these are the pieces that would be interesting. Where is your head at today? And what are the criteria that would drive that decision?
sure. In the order management world, in my world, for example, first off, I was largely in retail my whole career. I'm on the wholesale side now. I define an order management. There's inventory tracking and availability. You have order orchestration. So this is workflow. This is routing. You have parts around customer service, order modification. You have invoicing, payment, and such. You kind of cross-cut this life cycle, right? In my world, at least, the nuance are around we actually track raw inventory and then we make to order sometimes. We make to stock and make to order. So that's nuance as well. That's, I think, specific to how I make my product and then where I distribute it. We also operate in venue retail. So inside the stadiums, the stuff you're buying for the jerseys, that's us. And then we have 1,000+ different sites that we run. So there's an inventory part of that discussion. There's a routing part in our network in the States and internationally. And then there's aspects of kind of tracking work in progress inventory. And then how upstream do you want to start telling that availability story when it's actually a raw product? So that's some of the nuance in my world, at least for order management. I have to lens how much of that inventory tracking, availability, and routing discussion is truly bespoke, especially because it's not as if at Foot Locker when I was there, we had a pair of shoes and it was in that store. And our complexity was that we had like 1,000 stores. So we were solving for order routing. And most of it was heuristics. It was if then else. So I didn't need there, we didn't need to go build an OMS. There were a lot of great commercial vendors to go do that. Here at Fanatics, I think it's just a little bit different flavor. And I have to kind of lens that need and how complex and how integrated that needs to be with the downstream systems that actually print and press and make those or sew those jerseys together. So that's where the uniqueness of the business model, how fast I need to get to that from a few minutes ago when I was answering that, that's where I have to weight that order management discussion of what parts of that OM flow do I build out. So it's a little bit different. Fanatics and Foot Locker, those are two different stories, different chapters in the same book, I think.
Right. So fundamentally, what you're talking about is unique capabilities that you cannot find in the market easily. And it's all, I'm guessing, driven by one, cost, and two, time to market, I think is what I think you would look at from the specific capabilities that you need to run your business. Am I saying that right, Zach?
It's that, and the real quick thing I'll tell you as well as, and everyone I know on the call, I see a lot of familiar names here. In my B2B world, that's the ERP has an order management module or function typically. So if you're modernizing that ERP itself or it's an existing system, maybe what you're talking about is whether you're building the engine, the optimization engine, or you're going to buy that bespoke, but you're going composable in that view. So then the question is, if that's just a routing service you need, or optimization service, how complex is that? And then am I going to yield that to someone else and be beholden to them and maybe even need to customize that? Or am I just going to go now, because I can go faster with AI, go build that myself? How complex is the problem to solve is the question there. But in my world, I'm anchoring my answer just now in the fact that I have an ERP I'm grounded in. It's not a standalone retail or commercial OMS vendor.
Got it. Got it. Rich, just piggyback on this question or this point here. I think this is I think like Dylan posted here on the chat as well. This is something that hasn't significantly changed in the past, or since the past, right? What's unique you want to build potentially, and what's available in the market you want to buy. Now, the question I had specifically for you is, I think as somebody who's very progressive in terms of like how you
Mm-hmm.
think of build, especially with AI. How do you see this? Has this equation changed at all? Like, in terms of in the last 6 months to 1 year, and specifically in the last 6 months, we're seeing real productivity coming out with, coming up with like these tools, Cloud Code and some of these tools. Do you see a significant shift? Would this equation be different that Zach's articulating, be different, say now and in the next 6 months, for somebody who's looking to make this decision now? How does AI change things?
I I I definitely echo some of what he said, because it is about understanding. Well, a lot of companies really go based on what they're familiar with, right? That familiarity, the institutional history, right? Sometimes political preference, things like that, as far as understanding your differentiations. And to me, the test is, if were implementing an industry standard practice tomorrow, would customers notice, or would only internal teams notice? Right? If only internal teams notice, there's a good chance you're protecting familiarity instead of differentiation. And if you're not doing things that cause differentiating value, that old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Sure as hell, if you haven't understand your process, right? A lot of legacy processes have accumulated scar tissue, right? And the business has an immune system that is against change. It's not a competitive advantage, and bolting AI on it, bolting new things on it, is actually going to make it worse, not better. And it's time to re-understand what is the right process. Be willing to challenge yourself. If you read a book, there's a great book called The Book of Elon, which is somebody went and analyzed all of the things he said, right? Not biography. And you look at it, it's like, is the idiot index, right? Is it stupid? Can you get rid of a process? What does it go take? Figure that out and then automate it. We have to get back to some basics and challenge everything. That to me is the difference of AI. If you don't do that first, then making the decision build versus buy is a problem, right? You have to understand the business need and what is the actual business need that services the customer, right? Then roll forward to figure out, how should you solve it? Is it a differentiator for your business, or is it a commodity and I can buy it cheaper, better, faster? Speed to market, obviously, sometimes is a huge variable in that equation. Then go do it, right? Pick that answer. There's no rule that says, a lot of people will say, buy your foundation, build the edge. And directionally, for a lot of people, I don't disagree, but that's not a rule. That's a thing a lot of companies are doing. AI changes that. They neglect the foundation. It's been customized for 30 years. So when you replace it, you actually lose a bunch of shit. How extensible is it? How is it being done? AI might take those 1,000 workflows and make them better, but understanding the differentiation and the familiarity, right, is an important piece to look at, so that you're doing the right decision to buy or build what. Again, to me, it's, does it add value? Does it differentiate us in the market? That should be built. You should own that, because that is your business right there.
Got it. Got it. And I think, Rich, you mentioned something interesting that triggered a thought in my mind as well. And this is about the company itself and the culture and the history and the kind of because any of these types of technologies and these types of decisions can drive a lot of change in the organization in terms of how
Yeah.
software is created and consumed. Um, do you have any pointers, Rich, on like, having worked through different companies and Zach, I'd love your take as well on this. Like, are there some companies that are better suited for these types of opportunities than others? What would some of those characteristics be where we could say that, hey, if you're working in this type of a business and you have this type of a mindset, the leadership has this type of a mindset, the company has this type of mindset, then maybe the bias can be more towards build versus buy. I'm just looking for any guidance you can provide on that type of lens as well.
I think AI really is changing that answer. And if it's a very conservative company, your risk tolerance is low, you're a financial industry or something, it's very different than like Ashley, we're a privately held company, right? I'm not looking for next quarter's announcements. I'm looking for 2040 right now, right? What is the right thing for us long term as a generational company? Those are all variables that come into the equation. But the answer to me, build versus buy, comes into how much risk are we going to take? How understanding, how much change do you want? What's the value prop we're doing to it? And moving to, I mean, we're in an Amazon economy. Everyone wants everything tomorrow. How do we solve that? Right? You want it in 2 hours. How do we solve that? And that's hard when I have a distribution network that's monstrous around the world, right? How do I get it from anywhere in the world to anywhere else in the world in a day? Real problems again. So I'm willing to adopt higher risk to try and solve that problem than somebody who's in a financial market where one penny off and the entire, world is confused. So there's a little bit of that has to go into it. To me, it's very much be progressive, be willing to change and challenge everything from the bottom up, and then make a decision is where it's at.
Got it. So you're talking about a mindset shift and change
100%.
across the board. Zach, would you have anything to add on
Yeah,
this?
really interesting. Fanatics is like high growth company. Every year over year, we're taking in a new league or in a new market or acquisition for a new company. Also private. So I like what he was saying earlier. We have to be flexible. We have to continue to integrate all of these companies in as we roll on new teams. That has to happen rapidly. We're supporting FIFA, for example, this year. There's a lot going on that keeps changing constantly in my world now. So that flexibility means I can't go rely on an external vendor in some of these functions, right? If we get an email on Friday, it's something that's got to be ready in 2 3 weeks. I can't go phone in a spec to an external company, or if it's not on their roadmap, it just doesn't work like that, even with AI on their side as they're
Right.
taking the onus of that build. I think that's a general viewpoint. I have to be in a stance where I can move fast. And so to do that, I need to control some of that. And I think the pedigree here has historically been a lot of ex-eBay, ex-GSI folks, naturally, from our evolution, and our founder. They're builders. They've been in their prior companies were companies that were hyperscaled as well. So they just had to build what they needed to not just operate, but continue to help grow. So that's that political and the ecosystem of how decisions get made. It's kind of now, why would I not build this? And then you have to kind of defend why you wouldn't. Well, I can get it actually faster or more robust. Or, hey, I actually don't want to own building that because these 20 people need to be on this modernization effort. So those are the decisions in all of 2 months. I'm kind of starting to
Right.
lens some
Yeah.
of that stuff and having to learn to walk again quickly while doing it.
Right.
So
Right.
shaking
Right.
off some old consulting
Right.
slang.
It's fascinating that both of you come from, I did not think about this, earlier, but like you both come from private companies and both come from a strong tradition of build. And that's a very interesting theme here. Just another kind of follow-up question to this, a discussion we've been having so far. And I know this is a slightly different take I want to pivot to. I think a lot of this we've talked about so far, is either generic or more from the perspective of a retailer, Rich and Zach. What makes sense to build, buy, and all of that stuff. Now, putting yourselves and Zach, I think you're familiar with this. If you put yourself in the shoes of a software, a SaaS provider, or an SI, like many of us here are from SaaS vendors and SIs. What does this mean for us as SaaS vendors and SIs? What should we be doing? And there's a number of ideas that are out there, a number of things that people are talking about. The whole of this mark, concepts where you make your software composable, so people can just buy pieces, and you kind of essentially break down the application into modular chunks, so people can decide what to buy and build. And then there's this whole concept also of extensibility and making it easy to change rules. What are kind of things that you guys think about from a software vendor's perspective, or what can we be doing from your vantage point to make some of this easier, or maybe harder for you guys to figure out which way to go? Zach, I would love to get your take first on this.
Oh, it's the what's your moat question, because these software
Yes.
companies now have really the same tool set you do, right? I saw a vendor in an evaluation I was leading last year that was earlier this year. It's already June almost. That they were writing extensions that back when I was in Manhattan would have been 6-week extensions. It was 7 minutes, but they're using Claude Code in part. But I use Claude here at Fanatics, right, among other AI tool sets. So if I'm a SaaS company or I'm an SI, my moat is that I have seen 20 other companies and the way that they do business. I think my moat is what not to code, what not to try to go recreate or over engineer. I think that's the other pendulum swing. I've started to see a few of that. My moat is people and empathy and change and navigating someone through a change if I'm an SI. Selecting the right tech wasn't the hard part. And this past project before Fanatics, people changing, as cliche as it is really the harder part. So that's your value on the SI side. And the software side, I don't know, you got to get really innovative. You got to come up with some different ideas that your clients can't think of, or listen to the right client in your client base. I know that's kind of bad to say out loud. And go tap into something that they are trying to innovate on, and wrap your arms around them and co-innovate it with them, and the rest of your client base will yield the value of it. So you can't beat them, join them sort of deal. If
Yeah.
I'm a software company, I'm doing that, because if not, you're leaving that vacuum out for people like me to say, well, I'm just going to go build it because I know how, or because
Yeah.
I can go hire any one of the dozen, 2 dozen people on this call that are I know that space. It's talent now, and it's less the code part. It's the people
Yeah.
side in part, and their ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. Rich, anything you want to add? Any thoughts?
So, sure. I think the easiest way to kind of look at this, is that I know within our teams how to write code. Our AIs know how to write code. We're an augment code shop, which Zach, if you haven't played with, you should play with, because it has context 10x over what Claude has. We have Claude, we have Codex, we're running LLMs in-house, right? So we have a little of the whole mix of things that exist. I don't like paying SIs now to go spend the next 6 months building the integration and the workflows and tying into the system. I want to go do that. That's my business. I don't need to take and spend next 6 months teaching you how to build the thing to go run the thing that I need, right? I have the institution knowledge, or I've already done the workflows and the process mappings, and I know what I'm trying to do. Give me a way to do it. The advantage of let's talk order management, right? The foundational transactional pipelines that exist, your order management software, your inventory reservation, the distributed orchestration, right? The recovery handling, the concurrency. Those problems are brutally hard under production load. I don't trust Claude to go build that for me. Okay. A prototype survives a bunch of demos, but a platform survives seasons. I want to extend the platform to do it the way I want. So the extensibility, the ability for me to put my own plugins that now survive your updates, give me the testing patterns to do it. And we've done that against our systems, doing our ATP, et cetera. We're building extensions to do my own custom thing. I don't need you to write the code to handle my shipping minimum stupid logic. I built that as a service and I extended it into the system because we could go do that. And I think that's really a key thing that I need. I bluntly have a strong opinion, Zach, forgive the sentence. SaaS is dead. It is just now a matter of time. That doesn't mean I'm not going to pay people for software and use things. I mean, SaaS is dead, but we're just paying everyone for tokens instead. It's not dead. It's been rebranded. It's changed its face, right? Software running in house is a license agreement. It's still a SaaS, right? But AI makes that extensibility more available and more important because I realistically can exploit the extensibility and make your product do things you didn't think it could do and don't intend to do and don't support. Get out of my way. It's going to happen, right? Because it's a platform. And 5 years ago, that was never really a thing, right? And I think AI changes that, visibility. So as an SI, as a system, as an integrator, to me, that's what we do for our licensees, for our partners that are using our system. But more importantly, I think that's something I expect.
Yeah, so that's I think spot on in terms of what we've been seeing as well, and I think what both of you are sharing, which is this is changing things for everybody, not just for
Yeah,
retailers. It's obviously
yeah,
changing things for SIs, it's changing things for SaaS companies, and essentially it's not nobody's going away. It's just going to fundamentally change how
how we
software is
do it.
bought and
Yeah,
consumed, and services are bought and consumed as well. So we are all going through this learning curve. Um,
Can I
uh,
make a really quick point? I
yeah,
actually agree with you in part. Here's what I'll tell you. Ashley has historically had a great pedigree on great product managers and a great
mm-hmm.
engineering org for
Mm-hmm.
years, right? Which you're now leading the helm and taking that into this next phase. Um, I'd like to think Fanatics has a pretty strong base and a lot of great builders. Not every retailer or not every wholesaler has that
Does.
capacity. They're
Yep.
kind of almost outsourcing because they aren't structured like you guys are or we are.
Sure.
So like and there's a part of the market I think that just has to gravitate to yielding that to a SaaS company.
That's correct.
But I think when those contracts are up for what they're on, they're going to look at that and say, should I? Maybe the SI's role is should you not? And it's not a system integrator. So I agree with you on that point. Integrating the stuff's not as hard anymore. That used to be 60-70% of the hours in
Was
an OM
integration.
project. It was wild.
right.
Like, and then the customization is added the other 6+ months when OM projects used to take 2 years, basically. So, your point this to that integrated, that's a matter of weeks now. And then, functional requirements. Okay, you get pinned on something, you buy an OM with an extensible platform. Like I said, I saw one of these vendors do this in front of me, like 6-7 minutes. So that's done. So what's left? So you integrate it easier. Okay, you extended the logic a little easier, but that was a SaaS platform. And I just don't want to deal with infrastructure. I don't want to deal with whatever. I don't want to have to hire a product manager to go build in a roadmap. I'm going to yield all that. So SaaS is rebranded. That's the point I would agree with for
That's right.
sure. It's not, don't
Yeah.
quit calling it
Yeah.
software as a service. It's not that
Yeah,
anymore.
right.
It's
So
Mm-hmm.
renting someone else's capacity.
And that's what we're doing with ChatGPT. That's what we're doing with Anthropic. That's what we're doing with Microsoft. Microsoft's just a hosting company. Break it down. Azure is nothing but a hosting company who builds services to keep you hosting with them.
right,
Like,
right, right,
yeah,
right. It's not, the business is not going away. It's just the way we understand it is changing significantly. And I think that's
yes,
what you guys were saying, that and the same with services. What do we do? It's all of the commodity stuff that was all of the stuff that was a lot of the hours and a lot of the revenue is becoming commoditized. So automatically the value has to shift to something more upstream. Yes, Zach, you were going to say something.
You're not selling seats anymore, and you're not selling the value per hour in the SI side. So the model shot.
Right, right,
It's
right,
it's gone. So like, I don't need 100 seats. Maybe you're selling a seat to an agent now, but
right.
that is not the value. And don't come to me and ask me for part of GMV either. because I'm not paying you for my growth as well on your platform.
Right.
Same deal with our SIs. It's outcomes based. And it's over. You're not selling someone's hour because that hour doesn't mean the same as it did 2 years ago for someone to code. It just doesn't. So sell me the outcome on both sides of that, the software and the SI. And if that's valuable and I don't want to pay for it in-house, I will go buy that out for the parts that don't make, to your
Don't make
point,
sense.
make me unique. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's as
Rich,
simple
you
as
want to add
that.
something there? Yeah.
I was going to say the interesting part of that sentence is the hours on that was based on, the amount of time we spent in a 2-week sprint. The average person was putting 20 to 40 sprint points in a 2-week sprint, and that's what they could go deliver as an effort. And I did this as a proof of point to my team. A couple weekends ago, I worked 40 hours in a weekend just to prove an example, and I did the equivalent of 6,000 sprint points, fully registered in Jira, mapped, code committed, managed, deployed, and systems running in dev. And they're like, oh, you're changing what a 10x engineer looks or what a 100x engineer looks to the teams because that value has changed. And obviously, I wish I had all 300 developers with that same capability. Different problem, but that world has changed.
Yes.
And trying to figure out that happy medium and what does that new model look like is an important piece. And that goes back to, if I can go do those things as a provider, I want to be able to where it makes sense and adds value to the business, because I want to build that extension, that add-on, that integration. It's just a chat now.
Yeah, so I think that this is as an SI ourselves, we grapple with this all the time, and some of this stuff that you guys are saying is great fodder for many of us here to think about. Things like outcome-based consulting, maybe moving upstream to actually not just building or implementing, but thinking about what build and what buy and all of that, and it makes our business more interesting as well as an SI, definitely. I want to kind of pivot to a slightly different topic and then we can move on to questions. I know there's a lot of I think there's a few questions in the chat, and I'm sure there's folks out there that want to ask questions as well. So the last thing I want to talk about, and this is something Rich you mentioned right up front, and I think Zach you've talked about it from a different perspective as well. It's not just about code because writing the code is just like whatever 10%, 20%, whatever it is. Different people. Sanjeev has this thing about like 6%. Different people estimate what it is as a percentage of the total effort of building software. There's a lot of things like Rich you mentioned, reliability, performance, security. And I think Zach, you mentioned other things like, are you building the right things? Because with the cost of writing code going down, you have a lot of feature creep. Like there's all kinds of junk that gets written too because it's so easy. So the guardrails on, am I building the right stuff or am I just building a lot of junk that ends up adding to a lot of tech debt? So I think there's beyond the code, there's a lot of different considerations. So I want to pivot to talking about those considerations a little bit and seeing like what your thoughts are in terms of how companies are dealing with that. So Rich, as somebody who's doing this already, personally, you're, I think leagues ahead of many of us here. But even as a company, what I'm hearing is you guys are doing more. How do you guys approach governance and security? And are you looking at only specific models, specific things? How are you approaching this when it comes to all of the non-functional governance aspects of this?
Like I kind of implied earlier, it requires challenging everything you had and everything that existed, because to use an example, and I did a great post on this on LinkedIn recently, we were all built in a theory of constraints, right? You get rid of the blockers and get the things out of the way, everything can move faster, right? And the system, a factory, the operation, the business can run faster. In the world of AI, in the world of the automation, especially as we all move more and more toward the agentic world, removing all of those things actually causes chaos because things don't have enough. So if you don't put governance into the AI, into your patterns, into your design, your CI/CD pipelines, your whatever it is, what you will have is chaos, or you will have the joke we've all seen the memes of, AI just deleted my code base. Now, that's a stupid example that most of us know better than to do of don't give it that much permission in the first place, Dumby. But if you're putting the governance, if you have those decision-making boundaries, the governance in the very first set of code, right? What we're doing in Claude and Augment and Codex and all these different coding agents, Open Code's my new current favorite one. We built huge amounts of skills and enterprise architecture and standards that are built in through MCP servers we're running into the systems. So before I ever started, I gave it the boundaries so it knew how to run. And now with the boundaries, it knows when a human's in the loop, right? So AI doesn't solve the problem that you've got to have governance, you've got to define, your ownership models, you've got to have your maintenance patterns, you got to have your support patterns. All of that still has to be handled. We were able to ignore a lot of that over years because it just, well, we'll figure out support when something fucking breaks. You have to do this upfront in AI. You have to build the governance to understand it. And if that's as simple as which model are we allowed to use, then yes, you need to answer that question. Should we go spend $1 million in hardware or $5 million in hardware and put it into our own center? Or should we just use ChatGPT? And if we're using ChatGPT, are we doing it in Azure? Are we doing it in Vertex? Right? Are you doing it in AWS? Like, these are all real questions that need to be answered bluntly before you set your AI loose, more than exploration. Otherwise, it becomes the bottleneck and you will have a cascading failure that will happen later. It's only a matter of time.
Right.
So to me, that is the stuff that had to be done up front. Has
Right.
to
So
be done.
even though you may be able to do like, 10x the productivity in terms of writing code, the actual, deployment of features into production and into the real world
Yep.
has to be gated with all of this. So you're not going to get that 10x directly translate into output. It's going to be this thing. Zach, would love to get your take on that, but also, something you touched on earlier, the governance at the front end of this, which is like, how do you see that playing out? Because that is something that I've noticed as well, with the bar in terms of writing code coming down, or even writing user stories is now a lot easier. Writing, like you said,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to do all of this stuff. Therefore, are we just like building a lot of stuff that's junk, and leading to feature bloat in software, which is going to cause its own downstream problem 5 years down the road, like whatever AI version of tech debt is, right? With all of these features and all of this complexity. How do you think about that? What is in your mind? Like, what are you guys doing about how to handle some of this stuff?
Yeah. So in a good way, we have a little bit of an intake challenge in the new AI world. I have smart business. I have a few really smart business stakeholders that got real progressive on Claude with wireframes. And then now they're handing me a much more baked process. Whereas I would have hired an SI 5, 6 years ago and said, go sit with them for 4 or 6 weeks, figure out what they want, come through it. Now they're doing that almost for themselves and handing us, product and engineering, this starting point wireframe. Hey, I need this to run my business. Hey, I can't see all of the blanks we have across the network. Hey, I need more visibility to our exceptions, right? So they're coming to us now with skipping a few of the steps in what would have normally been an intake process. And now they're doing that and saying, here, when can I have this by? I'm like, okay, well, hold on. You're cross-cutting a bunch of different types of data. This is not actually great UX, but you need to kind of bend this down. So the intake part is kind of sped up and then jammed against, I don't want to say a not yet ready org, but not everything that they come up with from an idea actually can materialize. And usually you had a lot more time to figure that out. Now that's just compressed. I think the one click before that I would tell you as well is, as they're starting that discussion, if they're doing it in a silo in their own instance of Claude Enterprise, maybe that's not finding out that someone else 2 departments over had a pretty much similar idea. Or maybe product was thinking of building a broader solution and had a strategy, and they were building a microcosm of that if they just waited 2 more months, they would get what they asked for before. So I think that the conversational nature of I keep referencing Claude because we predominantly use it, Richard, but like, oh, hey, did you know Ben's building that? Did you know Mike Cup's building that? Dylan
Fascinating.
mentioned that the other day. Like, these
Yeah.
are we need to be using AI to say, hey, there's a bigger strategy. So it's what Richard's talking about is kind of this structured governance at when you're ready to understand what to build. This upstream for me is trying to get that organized and understand what it means to actually go build it in the first place. I think, and I think companies are still need to be humble about recognizing that they can be in a progressive stance, but they don't know what that new way of working is. The business definitely doesn't. Product and engineering are just trying to put it in place. Anyone that says that they have that and has it really well, is lying, because it's
Is
only been
lying.
happening for the last 6 to 12 months in earnest. So,
Yeah.
Right.
you got to be Best Buy and Target and some of these gigantic companies to tell
Yeah.
me, and then I don't know. I could take it with a grain of salt at the same time. Under the
Yeah.
hood is never the same as what the car looks like.
Looks like.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Rich, I want your take on this topic, but I want to ask you one other question. I think what Zach mentioned, is very interesting, because one of the outcomes of this could also be, and we've always seen this happen in companies where there's pockets of people doing their own thing. Somebody has budget and I'm going to build my own tool. I'm not even going to come to IT. I'm going to build my own tool for this, own tool for that, reports, whatever it is. Do you see that happening more? And I also would love to get your take on how you kind of put governance in the front end of this process, in terms of like the intake itself. And are you also seeing like these like gorilla type projects coming in where like people are like, I'm going to build my own tool because I can vibe code it in 2 days, or is that something? How do companies get their arms around that?
The biggest pain in everything we're doing. And the reality is, none of us know how to do it. This has never been done, right? Like I've come to the realization in the past 6 months, let's call it beginning of the year, right? I've been a developer for 40 years. I write in 18 languages. I've worked with every database you've ever heard of. And I've gotten to the point in the world that I will never have to write code again. Now, I'm pretty good at using AI because I understand how code works. So I can get an application out faster than Zach because I know what to ask, right? And he's still learning that question. Sweet, right? I can try and help all I can with my prompts. That still doesn't guarantee his output is good. That's where we still need development teams. How they work is different. Um, Understanding governance is also a CISO problem. It's an AI governance problem. It's a finance problem,
Yeah.
right? Most people aren't talking to all these departments. Our AI governance board is across all sections of the business, not just run in technology, right? Because it has to be, in my opinion, to be successful. Could I be wrong? Yeah. Might I be wasting lots of hours and effort in bad decisions? Sure. But it's working so far, and we're literally changing things every month because new stuff's coming out, new patterns are coming out, the strategy is changing. The strategy I think I'm going for 2040, I promise will not be the same in August. Okay, right? And so it's being willing to pivot, change, and learn. I believe there's only two choices. You're either going to succeed or you're going to learn something,
Yeah.
right? There's no failure anymore because, man, whatever just broke, give me 15 minutes. Now it's unbroke, right?
Yeah.
So I learned something. I'm changing my model to go down the next road. So having that pattern of learning, having that pattern of governance, having that pattern of systems is important. And I would just say, don't ignore it.
Yeah.
We could ignore it a long time and go innovate crap without talking to governance board or getting an architecture review board approval somewhere to go do a thing. That is gone. We had to figure out how to automate those. You had to figure out how to put GRC into the pipeline. I needed to figure out how to do code reviews in my pipeline, not hopefully submit it to security and hopefully someone didn't sneak it through, right? Like you just had to change the whole dynamic of how do we automate it? Because at some point we have prototypes right now of software and systems running on people's desks with fully automated dev teams that are running. I
Mm.
can't hand slap them. I can turn
Yeah.
them off, but I can't hand slap them like I could do write somebody up for breaking a security rule years ago. Now it's my agent just kept going.
Yeah.
And that's so to me, it's all about building the patterns that you need. Learn from it. I talked about the cost of experimentation is go down. Yeah, experiment more. The
Experiment
answer
more.
is get to right, get to wrong fast so you can keep getting to right.
Yeah, yeah, and putting a governance around that, so that, because that's something new that we've never done before. We've always been
Right.
de-risking things right up front, and now this is a whole new world. Yeah, I want to open the floor up. We have a great panel here with lots of great insights. I know there's a lot of questions in the chat as well. I don't know, Jason, Karan, if you guys have been keeping track of the questions, or I'm okay
I've
if.
done a few.
Okay, yeah. Anybody's questions not answered that would like to raise their hands and ask a question, please go ahead. Anyone?
I think Mike asked a couple of questions, even though Rich responded, but just wanted to verify if Mike up Arun Kumar, and then yeah, Geo. they asked.
I think most of the questions were answered. I have some kind of tactical ones because I'm super intrigued, Richard, about how far ahead you are in terms of, I think, most retailers. Um, but I think you guys were touching on it. And I did join late, so please just tell me that you already answered the question. Sounds like Ashley might be holistically kind of bought into AI dev model.
Mhm.
But in what I keep continuing to see is that the product teams, the engineering teams are pushing the envelope. They're developing faster than the business can catch up or even digest. Is that something that you ran into at Ashley and or Zach? Are you seeing at Fanatics? And then how did you resolve that, or how are you thinking about that?
I would tell you, yes, in some cases that's true. I would also tell you there's years worth of backlog from the business that IQ could never solve. We were the black hole and nothing ever gets done, right? So there's a catch 22 in that equation. Part of this is proof in the pudding. We have to prove it. The reality is a lot of the things on that list they asked us to do to make their jobs better. And fundamentally, we're building AI that's going to replace their job, right? Because the world has changed. So I can't assume you tell me you want this button to do a thing. That thing should probably not exist. And we need to go have product team really drill down to the basis of it. So it's changed how we looked at product, how we did BSAs, right? Interacting with the business, how we're evaluating what things to do as a prioritization scale. And it just required getting all of it. So some departments that we killed a bunch of stuff, like it's not worth me doing. It's going to cost me more to build or more to run and more to operate than it's worth fixing because I'm going to replace all of that with an agent, or I'm going to replace all of that with a whole lot of machine learning, or I'm going to replace the system. So the being willing to ask the hard question, right? The number one failure of engineers is over engineering something that shouldn't exist, right? Go back to the basics, whether it's a product team, whether it's a tech leader, whether it's the developer themselves or the architect who's involved in it. Figure out what you actually should need and go build that. And look at it from the sake of the customer, from the business, whether it's in order management. How does the customer order get here? How do we get them the right data? How do we continue to process it through the system? Right? That's the goal. Now go figure out how to solve that. Challenge everything. That's how we did it. It has been painful with some business leaders. It has been welcomed with open arms by other ones. It's been screwed up by some product leaders. It's been evangelized perfectly by other ones. We're all still figuring it out. There's no answer yet, Mike. Ask me in 5 years. I'll tell you how it went. It's probably going to go exactly like that, wonderfully, horribly. And just keep pushing your way through.
I appreciate the honesty. That's good to hear. It doesn't seem like there's a one-shot solution or a simple path forward. So appreciate
It's also how agentic are you going to be? Where are you going? What are you trying to fix? What is your business is? There is no right answer there. There's the right thing for your strategy and your business. Ours happens to be with a huge team and a global, right? We're an 800-pound gorilla in what we are. Global manufacturing. I shipped to 159 countries. I have different patterns that I'm going to do with Tunisia than I would do with Alabama, right? And so there's different tech that has to exist in all of those things, and there's different teams that have to deal with it. So you have to fit it into your business. The way I do it may not work for you, and the way you should probably do it may not work for me. You're going to have to figure it out. That is the advantage of AI, is changing that dynamic to really make it work for you.
Mike, you're fine for now until REI expands into Western Europe. I think I can text you later and let you know my thoughts because I know we're short on time.
Yeah.
But he's got a unique challenge in his own right. But I'll catch up with you later, Mike.
Any other questions? Karan, I saw you.
Arun had one in the chat. I'll hit. In the OMS and retail monetization space, are AI investments delivering faster ROI than buying matured SaaS capabilities? And where do I see AI genuinely reducing operational costs or improving fulfillment efficiency, today? Are AI investments delivering faster ROI? The answer is the things we invest in AI are meant to add value. I'm going to change from ROI in this sentence and talk value, because some things aren't turning a return on investment, but they're increasing the value to our customer, which is going to pay off somewhere else, right? Or hasn't paid off yet, or a part of a strategy vision. I genuinely see AI reducing operational costs in every area of our business, bar none. We're already seeing it in increasing production output. Again, it's not about getting rid of people. It is about increasing output, reducing OE cost, which is a throughput management, whether that's supply chain sourcing, customs, warehousing, manufacturing, transportation, right? We deliver into the home. How do I communicate to the customer? AI generally reduces those costs in every part of the business. Have we realized it in every part of the business yet? No. We are on track to. It takes a lot of people, change management, system management, operational costs. It's going to take me the next 2 years to get to the vision we're aiming for. Again, depending on what AI changes between now and August, it's going to keep changing my plan. But it's definitely happening hardcore, in particular around OMS, because my integrations are faster, my automations are better. Things like ATP get better because I can get more data faster. I'm finding new ways to get things that were never really viable before, adding new capacities into the equation we couldn't do because that was a 9-month project. Well, now when it's a 30-day project, it's not as scary. Like, let's start it, let's try it, let's test it in one market, one region, one warehouse. So I think, yes, it's been doing a bunch of that.
Yeah, yeah. So we have one more minute left. Zach, any closing thoughts from you?
Buckle up, everybody. It's been a wild 6 months. It's gonna get pretty crazy out there. I'm not doomsday apocalyptic on the economy as a whole, but I definitely think if you're holding on to what you knew the last 10 or 15 years and you're not fully just diving into the deep end on AI, then you're at a disadvantage. That my learning path from January. I'll get to Jarvis one day, hopefully. You'll have to teach me, but you got to be full tilt. You're going to get left behind in a really bad way. And so not apocalyptic view, but it's, everyone needs to, figure out a way to get smarter. And don't hold on to your title and your role unless you're a CTO, I guess. So I don't know. It's going to change a lot. Get really comfortable with that fast.
Yeah. And Rich, there's already an ask for a video on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I saw that. I already commented on it. Once I get it really fully baked out, I keep adding things. The kind of summary, Laxman, I would give is, in this world as we're moving forward, the winners will be aren't going to be the companies that generate the most code or find the most ways to do AI. They're going to be the companies that can safely absorb the most of change into what they're doing, right? Because we have to be able to handle that governance scarcity. We've got to be able to handle these things within our systems. And if we can absorb change more, if we can absorb patterns more, we can absorb, all of the tech that we're doing and is coming. That's how we're all going to come out ahead.
Spot on. Great insights, great advice. I want to thank both of you, Zach, Rich. I really appreciate your time, sharing your insights. And for everybody here, please feel free to reach out to these guys. They have a lot of insights, a lot of learnings from all of their experience. A very interesting topic. Thank you all for joining. Thanks, Rich and Zach, again, for sharing your insights. And have a great afternoon, everybody.
Good to see you. All right.
Thanks all.
Bye.